Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the UOU Book Club discussion. Now, I'm going to assume that you know why you're here, but just in case you don't, we are discussing this book today, the UOU by Dr. Eric Thomas. And if you are just here for the discussions, we're on chapter one. Chapter one is called When You Take Ownership, You Become the CEO of Your Life. When you take ownership, you become the CEO of your life. If you were reading the book along with me, are you motivated yet? Because I'm pretty motivated. This chapter was a good one. And I had a feeling that we're going to be moving in this direction because there is no way for you to be successful unless you actually take ownership. There's no way. It is impossible unless you are strong enough to understand that you have to make decisions on a daily basis that move you in the direction of achieving whatever goal it is you have out there. And it can't be somebody else's fault that you are not getting there. And more often than not, we are blaming other people for our downfalls. He goes into that very heavily in this chapter. But before he goes into that, it's really cool because he actually starts the chapter by telling the story of his life. And you get to kind of see the behind the scenes of a person who is currently very, very, very successful, who started off just regular, just a normal person who had some things happen to him. And in those things happening, he kind of got in his feelings and it sent him to a down spiral quickly. And he went from this normal childhood to just living a rough life on the streets, honestly, living a rough life on the streets, all of which he oddly chose for himself. And he says that he chose for himself. And he had to figure out some things in order for him to break this victim mindset that he was talking about to launch him into the successful person that he is today. As I was reading his story, however, I also realized how important our stories are. Like, I don't know the last time you've had a chance to sit down and actually write out your story or dictate your story or tell someone your story. But I would encourage you to do so. Just think about all the intricate details that is your life. And I think that this is important because once you truly start to understand who you are, where you came from, you have a better understanding of how it is you make decisions. He's saying in this book, one of the quotes that I took is, when you're young, he said, your parents tell you what to do. And that is your first example. And this is so true. If you think about it, you have to think about all the people who have influenced your life. There were several people in your life, lots of them, who were entrusted with caring for you. And in caring for you, they already had their own opinions developed. And in those own opinions, they gave you those opinions. They're like, this is how things are. This is how people are. This is how this should be done. We like this. We don't like that. And that's all you know. That's how you grew up. That's how you have been influenced. And I thought, it reminds me of my childhood and the fact that I would watch my parents regularly. I'm definitely a people watcher. Sometimes I still make mistakes even though I'm watching people, because sometimes I guess you just got to go through it on your own. But most of the time I'm like, ooh, count me out. Don't want to do that. Where I'm like, ooh, okay, note to self, not doing that either. I'm definitely that. And I remember I watched my parents often because, they're my parents. And I would think, okay, I don't want to do that. I do want to do that. I want to end up like this. I don't want to end up like that. I do want to do this when I get older. I don't want to do that when I get older. And I would make those just hard and fast decisions in my life because I felt like I knew that that was my influence. The chances of me breaking outside of that influence is slim to none. You know, when you talk to people and you hear the stories of, I was a teacher and my grandma was a teacher, my mom was a teacher, my dad was a teacher, and everybody I know, we're all teachers. We're all teachers. Um, and understanding that there's this box that happens, and it's just natural. It's natural because, again, somebody was entrusted with your life and they're doing the best that they can and giving you the information that they know. Um, and you trust them, so that's your example. He was also saying that, um, well, he was saying, as he was telling the story of his family, um, how there are these ups and downs and these moments that are very important to trying to figure out how to move yourself forward. And one of the things that he said that stuck out to me is, how can you think about creating a life of fulfillment when you're living in poverty? And so, again, that's just that understanding of where you are, what you've gone through, so you can figure out, again, how you best make decisions, why you might be making the same decision over and over again, why you might be stuck in a generational curse, how you can break free from it. And he starts to go into detail about the victimhood mindset and how we can best break ourselves free from being a victim of our own life, because we don't want to be the victim, we want to be the boss. And chances are very likely we think we're the boss already, but we actually have been oppressed upon so much that we're just doing what somebody told us we should be doing. And we have to actually take very, very determined, designated steps to breaking free of doing what somebody has told us to do in our life that we trust, because, again, that's the person we know. He says that when you shed the victim mentality, that's when you become the CEO of your life. When you shed that mentality, that's when you become the CEO. And when did you end up with a mentality in the first place, I guess? And again, that comes through figuring out your own life story, figuring out how is it you ended up stuck or not stuck. He says that victimhood is when you wait for the world to provide you with the tools you need to be successful. Like, what are you waiting on? Who are you waiting on? And he continues to go further in this, and this is really my favorite part of all of this. And he says, feelings are not facts. Feelings are not facts. And I am going to guess that we get stuck in victimhood mentality because of our feelings. Have you ever been in a situation in which you just felt so strongly that you just did something out of spite? And chances are very likely the answer is yes. We get super stuck in our feelings. Our feelings make us do crazy things. And he says, if you can figure out the facts are how you can move through your life. If you can figure out the facts, you can have the feelings. We naturally are going to have the feelings. But if you can have the feelings and also figure out the facts and also make a plan to move forward, to break free of being the victim of whatever is going on in your life, to break free from that, then that is how you become the CEO. That is how you become successful. He also continues to go into, just some really good guidelines of how he feels it's best to break free of that victimhood mentality. And some of them are so good. I have to share them with you. I had to get the book because the book is the only thing that we need right now to go through to make sure that I accurately depict what he is saying, because it's really good. So he's saying, and I'm on page 26 here, how do we break free of this? Okay. How do we cast off the character of a victim? And not that he says it in there, because he didn't. I'm the one who says that the reason that you feel like a victim is because you're in your feelings. He does talk about feelings in there, but that's where it comes from. One, he says, of course, you have to take ownership. So, taking ownership of everything that comes out of your mouth, everything you say, everything you do, making sure that whatever is going on, you are moving in the direction that you say you want to move in, and that you're not getting bogged down by your feelings. Number two, he says you have to own your decisions. So, first, we're taking ownership of our decisions, ownership of ourselves. Sorry, first you have to take ownership of your self, and then ownership of your decisions. Understanding that things in life, like I said, are going to happen. What are you going to do to get through those things? But this is my favorite one right here. Number three. He says you have to set a standard. You have to set a standard, because if you don't have a standard, you're not going to rise to anything. He says if you don't have a benchmark, you're going to let yourself free fall, and anything can come your way, whatever it is. You're just letting life happen to you. He says a goal is an intangible desire, but a standard is solid ground. If you want to get into shape, set an exercise and diet standard, and then meet the standard. You want to buy a house for your family? Set a savings standard. And while you're at it, pick up a book and start getting literate about your finances. You want to finish your degree? Set a standard to always do your homework, to memorize the material, to make your grades. No one is going to set standards for you. No one is going to read the books or go to classes for you. Only you can set the standard. Only you can follow through. How amazing is that? So true. You have to set the standard. You have to make the decision that this is what I'm going to do. I am pretty good at making random standards. And then sometimes when it comes to things that are truly important to me, like I forget, I need to make a standard here. It's a standard for me to eat brownies whenever I see brownies. I promise you that. I promise you I don't have any hesitation with eating brownies when I see them. But when it comes to following through on something, sometimes I don't have a standard set in place, and I kind of let things just happen as they may. But if I want to see success, and if I want to break free of things happening when they happen, I have to set that standard. I am pretty proud of myself, because growing up, I did have standards. I did sports when I was in college. And so one of the standards that I have, and this is really strange, but I'm going to share it anyway. One of the standards I had, and this was before I got to college, I just knew that I was very set on being good at what I did. And I was very set at making sure that I finished practices. Didn't matter if I was tired, didn't matter if I was sick, didn't matter how I was feeling. None of that stuff was important to me. I had a standard of finishing practices. My standard was, and I can still remember to this day, and I don't know why I came up with it, but I used to tell myself it's going to have to break in order for me to not finish whatever I'm doing. Whatever it is, like my leg, it's going to have to break. Like it's going to literally have to be broken for me not to run. And I remember later in my career, and I did have a few injuries, and one particular meet, which is a very important meet, I had pulled my hamstring a few months before, which usually puts you out. And I had made the decision that I was going to try to run at this meet, and I did make it there. And I set a standard that, I'm going to make it across the finish line. And I was pretty hurting as I had finished up this race. So I guess big picture, it's a championship meet. I had run the day before. I decided I was going to take it easy. I just needed to make it to finals. It shouldn't take me much to make it to finals, so that was my goal. I did squeak into finals. They take the top 9. I was 7th. That was exactly what I was expecting. And I was hoping that, I would still be able to go away with a relatively high placing. Even though I hadn't run in weeks, I was still planning on getting at least second or third, which is obnoxious for someone who hadn't run in a while. But I was pretty set on, either I'm going to get, I'm going to get the placing that I want. I'm going to get the record that I want. And if anything else happens, I'm just going to finish the race. And about 300 meters into this 400-meter dash that I was running, my hamstring kind of tightened up again. And I thought, oh, maybe if I just relax here instead of trying to push, I can just wait till I get to the straightaway, and I can try to do it again. And so I waited a little bit longer. I was still in pretty good position at that point, and I got to the straightaway and thought that I was gonna, give it another effort. My hamstring was like, nope, you can sit down here. And so I could have just stopped, and maybe I should have, but I decided that I was just gonna jog till I made it to the end of the finish line because, whatever it is, at least I could tell myself that I finished for the day. But that was the standard for me. And I think that most people would have stopped because there was no reason for me to actually finish that race. I was probably actually putting myself in more harm's way than anything else. But my standards are pretty high. Like, you're not going to write did not finish next to my name. Like, I finished. I promise you that whatever I started, I finished. So I think the standard resonated like strongly with me. He also gave a couple more things here. Number 4, he says no excuses. Once you set the standard, there is no room for making excuses, and I completely agree. If you say you're going to do something, then do it. And on that note, that is chapter 1. I'm excited to dive into chapter 2. And chapter 2 is you were never in it by yourself. You were only alone when you tell yourself you're alone. That sounds like an interesting chapter. If you were excited about that chapter, link is below or in one of the cards or however they do these YouTube things. I'll figure it out, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.